Welcome to a new Paradigm of Education podcast. I'm your host, Monique Sayers. Today we have our special guest, Beckie Shuttleworth. Before I go ahead and introduce Beckie, let me introduce the podcast. So, A New Paradigm of Education is an awakening in education. It's a place where we hold hands with parents, mentors, and anybody across the world who wants to make a change in education. The world as we know it has completely shifted. A paradigm shift is here before our eyes. We've seen the birthing of new schools. We've seen the unfolding of the old school system. So what really excites me is bringing forth all these amazing mentors in the world who really want to hold hands with us in this new paradigm and make a paradigm shift together. I'm so excited to have you here, Beckie.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here, and what wonderful work you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And just for those of you who are wanting to know who Beckie is, she's a children's wellbeing mentor. She's also creator of the Shine Brightly movement, which incorporates mindfulness activities, I guess yoga and meditation. I guess we could start with that because I'm really curious. I love this word shine and I love the word brightly. So why don't we just start with that? What is it that you're offering that's supporting us in the new paradigm? I'd love to hear.
So Shine Brightly is my holistic wellbeing program for young people. And it's really born from my years and years of experience of working with children and their families in all sorts of different contexts and very much so in education. And then when was it, 2010, that I first started practicing yoga myself. And a few years later, I wasn't really happy in my teaching job. And I was feeling like that the system of education really wasn't doing what it should have been doing. And I just really felt very uncomfortable with it all. And suddenly realized that I could bring together these things that I loved so much in my life, which was working with children and practicing yoga. And Shine Brightly kind of came out of this idea that I wanted to be doing something with children that I felt was really, truly beneficial for them and that was really meeting their needs and whatever those needs happen to be. So it's a very kind of individualized program around a framework. And the idea is that I've taken a lot of the yoga philosophy elements that are generally in our culture, maybe not given as much attention or maybe not really taught to children, and made them really accessible for children. So the program's based around mindful movement, meditation and mindset activities. And yeah, Shine Brightly came about because I was working with a mentor and we were talking about how this program was going to come together. And Shine Brightly is just really what I want for all children. And it just seemed like the perfect title. And I'm so glad that I chose it now, because it's been over a year, maybe a bit longer, that I've been using this particular title. And it just really has stood the test of this time as I've been developing the program more and more. It just works perfectly. Everyone seems to understand what I mean when I say it, and lots of different people that I speak to have a similar idea of what it means. And it might not be, the exact wording, but for me it means that children are living as their most truthful and joyful expression of themselves.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's so beautiful. And, it sounds so simple. Let's live our most truthful and joyful. But, in this world, like that really is the key. That is the key for a new paradigm and an awakening. I know in my chapter that I wrote in our book, A New Paradigm of Education, mine is actually called Awakening into Education. And it's all about finding that joy. So not only are the children finding joy, but the educators, the parents, everybody's in that space of their truth and their ignition, so they're able to learn from that place, and that learning is not happening in another way. So we need people like you that also have this same vision to help help the children around the world to ignite this within themselves. And they already have that in them. It's not that we need to do anything, right? It's just having somebody that was able to mentor them and say, yeah, this is the path, go for it, don't ever dim your light. That is just so beautiful. Wow.
I think in some ways it's really about doing less to children in a way, you know, because they have all of this, as you say, they have all of this inside of them. You know, I find that children are very intuitive, they're very natural yogis, they, you know, they're very connected to their energy, and oftentimes they really know what is good for them and what they need. But the systems that we live in don't always allow for them to take that path necessarily. And so sometimes I think it's about our systems, or quite often about our systems, being a lot more flexible for children and enabling them to really be truthful as themselves.
Yeah, it's
And not try and
amazing.
fit into boxes and things like that.
Yeah, totally. And I think what I have seen since the pandemic is that there has started to be a shift in that, you know, when the children weren't at school 5 days a week, there was this shift, and it was really beautiful to see, well, what can we do in one day? And since then, I've been meeting so many different families and teams that have all been able to encompass this kind of holistic way of learning. And so it's really amazing that finally I can see it. I can see before my eyes this awakening is there, and it's up to us to do that. Well, what can we do? Which leads me to my question I have for you. So I wanted to know, what could somebody do just if they're at home and they wanted to, like, you know, wake up and do mindfulness activities or yoga, or is there something simple that you could offer, or let us know that they could do?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of very quick, simple activities that you can build into your daily life. I mean, I would start by just taking a couple of conscious breaths. I think that just getting connected with our breathing is a really, really simple but not always easy place to start. You know, so many of us, we just go about our days for most of our lives without even thinking about the way the breath moves in the body. And actually, the breath is so powerful, you know, it can change the way we think and feel. And having that awareness that we have this tool within us, and giving that awareness to children that they have a tool that they can use that is free and it's always there, nobody can really take it away from them. So just connecting with the breath, I think, is a really wonderful way to start. Very simple grounding activities, just rocking forwards and backwards on bare feet on grass where possible, and where not possible, you know, doing it in the supermarket queue if you need to. Where, you know, I think it's about being really flexible as well, and not having this idea that we need to set aside an hour in a beautiful natural place to do mindfulness activities. As much as that's lovely, it's not really realistic for a lot of us. So I think having lots of short activities that can be done anywhere at any time, and I would definitely say that building these into your routine when things are good. So rather than in a situation where something is happening, so rather than at a kind of meltdown point, then showing your child how to breathe mindfully is not going to be very effective at that point. So having these kind of tools built in from day-to-day experience, knowing that they're really well embedded and can be drawn upon when needed, is really powerful.
Yeah, I really feel you on that one. I know myself with my daughter how it is when she is in her way, and she definitely, like, we've taught her a couple of activities that she can do, but prior to that she didn't know what to do, and she just was like, just all I know is that I need to scream at this moment. Like, that's all she knew. So I feel like it's really important what you're sharing, really, really helpful for so many families to be able to show children different ways. And not that screaming is a bad thing. Screaming, I'm not saying that you should block a child and not allow screaming, but sometimes you can feel it's like there could be a better way, right?
Yeah,
To
yeah.
offer them.
And it, my first thought when you said that was about holding space for that. And you know, and when those big emotions are coming out, when those big kind of explosions of feeling are happening, allowing that to happen to a certain extent, like holding that space for that child to release that emotion from the body. Because so often when the emotions are trapped inside the body, or, you know, we ask them to stop crying or calm down or whatever it is, but we don't give other tools to help, then we're in this situation of kind of pushing everything down, and eventually it's all going to come out. So I think that combination of holding space for those really big emotions and just being there with the child, letting them know that that it's okay that it's important to let this stuff out, but also guiding them and giving them other options of ways to manage those sorts of feelings.
Yeah, totally. And like you said, you'd been offering the program around, have you been doing that in actual school settings or in people's homes? Or
Yeah.
like, how has it been? Have you noticed any shifts? Did you want to share something around that? Or
Yeah, so I have really noticed, having worked in schools mainly in London in the UK since the late 90s, I've noticed a big shift in the last couple of years, even the last kind of 5 years or so, but really, really so much more since schools have been coming back to a kind of normal way of operating since the pandemic is hopefully more and more behind us. I've really noticed that schools are putting a huge emphasis on well-being, and one of the schools that I currently work with, I work with them for what's 4 or 5 hours a day, once a week. So I'm in for almost a full day once a week with them, and in that session I work with one-to-one children with additional needs who need additional support with expressing emotions and that kind of area. And then I also deliver whole class sessions. So every class in the school gets a session with me every few weeks. And when I first started delivering there, I was really, really happy to see that so many children already know what yoga is. They've already heard of meditation. They've already heard of mindfulness. And I think if you go back 10 years, that would not have been the case at all. So I think, the yoga and meditation and mindfulness and this kind of thing is really starting to penetrate all parts of society now and being seen as something that is useful and valuable. And so I think it's about, as well as supporting the children when I go in, it's also really about supporting the teachers and the parents as well, because lots of teachers are being expected to deliver yoga as part of the PE curriculum. And they may not have any experience with yoga. So then we're getting into the yoga becoming an exercise class. And really, we want to make sure that children are accessing a kind of a rounded expression of yoga, including the philosophy side of it and the ways of living. So it's not just something that we practice on our mat, but it's a way that we live our whole lives. And one of the other things that we're doing in school as well, which is another way to reach the whole school community, is having wellbeing ambassadors from every class.
Oh, wow, I like that.
So I meet with the wellbeing ambassador from every class every few weeks, and I give them a few activities that they can then deliver to their classmates. So we're really looking at ways of accessing the whole school community. I put a tip in the newsletter every week for parents as well around the kinds of things you were just asking about, really short mindfulness activities that they can do at home. So yeah, really finding ways for everyone in the school to benefit from my input.
Yeah, I love that. I love that they have ambassadors. That's really cool. That's such a new paradigm,
from
isn't
year
it?
one. Yeah, from year one. So 5-year-olds all the way up to 11-year-olds. It's wonderful.
And it also gives them that sense of importance that, health is important, which I'm really loving as well. That's really aligning. That's amazing. And I'm so happy also that you're able to share yoga on a deeper level. And because my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, please don't let yoga just be one term. Please let it be the whole year. Please let it be every day. Like, I'd love to see schools where they embody, 5-minute intervals all throughout the day. And it's just part of learning. As you're saying, it's not a separate activity,
And that's what the wellbeing ambassador's role is. Whenever there's 2 minutes here or there, they've got a pack of cards with, I think, 14 different activities in. We took photos of all the children doing the activities, created a set of cards with written instructions and photos on. And at any moment, and it's great for the teachers as well, at any moment that they've got a 2 minutes or a 5 minutes that needs filling, the wellbeing ambassador can jump up and do a little session with the class. So yeah, it's really about weaving it in throughout the whole school day.
Yeah, that's amazing. So is it mostly the yoga poses and the breathing? Do you do mindfulness in terms of creative arts as well, or like art or things like that? Or your role is more like using the body?
That's not so much my role. My role is mainly through the body, mainly through breathing exercises, through breath work, through relaxation. I also do Reiki as well. So I bring a bit of Reiki into to what I'm doing as well, working with the children with their magic and their healing in their hands, and
Oh,
you know,
wow.
and bringing that idea to them that they have this kind of intrinsic magic within them that helps them to feel better. And I think that's a really important element, is helping children feel really empowered, that they are capable, you know, that they don't need, and not that we shouldn't, obviously, you know, obviously we want community and we want children to work together, but also that they have this power to change the way things are for themselves. And actually what's very beautiful about this is children are so community minded, because they're always talking about how they can help a friend if they're not feeling good, or how they can use these ideas in the playground to go find somebody who's not feeling happy, or, you know, it's yeah, they're very caring towards each other with these activities as well.
Yeah, that's so amazing, because I feel that's also necessary as well to learn. Well, we have had a focus on that in the past in social emotional learning, but what I'm loving is that the energy aspect is coming in,
Yeah.
and that's really what's needed. And I also feel like it really helps children's learning as well, because they're kind of tapping into this superpower. It's like, why wouldn't you want a child's brain to be really activated, like not just even the right and the left, but the whole brain to be activated through mindfulness and through meditation? And a lot of our book that we talk about in A New Paradigm is about this shift, like that we can almost the paradigm shift is almost that we coined it the energetic quotient. So we have the IQ, the EQ, and we have an NQ, which is the energetic quotient, which is like this amazing aspect, like what you're saying. People can through meditation, through Reiki, through their own power, they can tap into this part of the brain. And from there, they're able to, just to learn better, to have less anxiety, to feel good.
And I think it's absolutely the case, what you mentioned about there has been this big focus on social and emotional development, but it's been from a very intellectual point of view. And I think helping children to keep their intuition, because I believe that children are born very intuitive, and it's something that society kind of teaches out of us as we get older. And then many of us spend time in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s kind of getting back to what we originally had. And so if we can help children to hold on to that intuitive aspect of themselves, if we can help them to harness that energy and to tap into what they can't necessarily see but they can feel, then I think it absolutely helps with their learning, absolutely helps with their relationships, with how they feel about themselves, and also just being ready to learn, because so many children are not always ready to learn due to everything else that's going on in their lives. And when we're looking at schools which have very rigid systems quite a lot of the time, and I think that's it's not necessarily a criticism, it's just a product of the system. It's very difficult to manage huge groups of children without people having to conform. I think you'd need a hugely, like, massive number of adults to make it more flexible, and money for that and all the rest of it. But helping children to be more present and to be in the moment, and to be able to put themselves there, really can help with their abilities to be ready for learning.
Yeah, I hear you on that 100%. And I feel like that will be the next part of the paradigm shift. As these systems are no longer functioning, there's going to be, or there already is, a birthing of all these different kinds of schools and communities, and even programs. Like, all of this is part of the new paradigm. It leads me into a question that I ask every podcast guest, and you can answer it in any way. And you can also think of the future. You can think of now as the future. So what would be your vision for a new paradigm of education, if it could be like any vision?
Well, I think one of the things that I'm really passionate about is children having more autonomy in their learning, and children having more freedom in their learning. And I think we're stuck in this system. Well, I know this isn't the case everywhere, but I grew up in London. I live in London, and I went to a comprehensive secondary school where there was 1,200 children, I think. And I know in America, like having schools that size is not unusual at all, and often even bigger. And I think one of the biggest things for me is having smaller groups, potentially more mixture in ages, making the setting more like a family setting, so that we're not herding children from one place to another and fixing them with the group of people that they're supposed to interact with. I really feel like something really, really powerful would be to have much smaller groups, which would allow for much more freedom and autonomy in learning. And I know that not every family is able to home educate for a massive variety of reasons, and that's not necessarily to be expected. But I think there is a lot that we could be doing to help the system respond to the child, rather than the child need to fit in to the system that currently exists.
Yeah, totally. I think that would be amazing to work with smaller groups. I've been really lucky. I've been working in international schools when I was in Bali. So I always had small groups. I had like one class, I had 6 children for the whole year. And another year I had like 14. And I was literally able just to hone in on whatever they needed. And we were just there together, like really like a family, as you're saying, just was really, really beautiful. And I really do love the mixed learning as well. My daughter in Uruguay here, she goes to a school that's set in the forest, and it's kind of it's a free school, and the children just all day, they have all these kind of rooms that they can go to, and they just choose what they want to do. They can be inside, they can be outside. And the other day she was doing, they sent us some photos of her like outside in the garden doing some recycling and some planting. And I said, oh, wow, that looks like such a great activity. She's only 4. And she said, no, it's not an activity, it's my work. And I said, what do you mean it's your work? She's like, oh, I'm responsible. I chose that I want to do this because I'm responsible. And I chose I want to be like helping the environment. And I was just like, I mean, oh my goodness.
That is just beautiful. And actually one thing that I didn't mention is how important I think nature is, and how important it is to be in nature. I'm a forest school leader as well, so a couple of times a week I take some local nursery school children, 2 and 3 year olds, over. We call it the forest. It's London, so it's a wooded area within a park, but they're 2 and 3 years old, so the level of forest needed to feel like a forest is not as big. But you know, I was really massively influenced by the Scandinavian approach to education when I was at university studying education more than 20 years ago, and I was really influenced by this idea of being in nature, and children, as you say, with your daughter, being a part of the system which keeps the school, the educational environment running, you know, having these responsibilities, being aware of their environmental impact, and learning from, I think the outdoor classroom is considered like this, you know, it's always changing. You don't have to go in and set up your classroom every day as a teacher, because the classroom changes all around you at all times. And that's just, yeah, I think that connection with nature is hugely important.
Yeah, that's amazing that you're able to bring that to children. When you were teaching them, you know, this outdoor aspect, did you notice that they would like understand nature? Like, was it sort of innate within them? They knew about it, or were they really like curious to know more? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think one of the wonderful things about working with children so young in a natural environment is that they're very rarely worried about things or scared of things. You know, it takes a little bit longer before they start to think that worms are disgusting and spiders are scary and all of that kind of thing. I didn't really come across that. They were just so interested. You know, we're on the way. In fact, this morning I was taking a class, and before we'd even really left the area of their nursery, we'd talked about kind of 10 different types of flowers that we'd seen along the way, and the berries that the birds were going to eat. And you know, there's just so much discussion, so much to talk about. They're absolutely completely fascinated by the snails, because we go twice a week every week, and over the last few months from winter now until summer, like seeing sometimes at the beginning when the snails were all kind of clustered together, and then we see as it got warmer and wetter they started to come out, and now we're not seeing them as much. And like we're seeing whole life cycles happening, and these kids are just absolutely engaged with it. And we can talk about what we see changing every time we visit, and that connection with nature is just so incredibly important.
Yeah, I feel like that is the curriculum right there, isn't it? It incorporates everything without them even knowing, okay, let's sit down and learn science life cycles. Like they're just there playing, looking around, and they just know about it, and that's what I feel like the best type of learning is. It's like almost like osmosis. You just like suddenly just knowing it,
they're climbing in trees, they're balancing on logs. They love using, like, we collect the fallen leaves off the ground, and they love using scissors to cut the leaves. And like they're just exploring with all these different things. And as you say, it's all just happening naturally. We don't need a syllabus to tick off what they're learning in that moment, because it's all just happening. And being able to kind of follow their interests at that moment is just wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. And that brings us back to Shine Brightly, which I feel leads us back into finding that gift within and shining. I just love the expression of that. So before we wrap up today, I just wanted to say, was there anything you wanted to share with parents, how they could reach you or how you could support them along the way?
Yeah, sure. So one of the best ways to find me is probably on Instagram. My Instagram handle is Shine Brightly with Beckie, and Beckie's with an IE rather than a Y. And my website is just undergoing some renovations. So at the end of August, beginning of September, there's going to be a new website launch, and lots of new programs and classes all coming in September. There's going to be an evergreen online version of Shine Brightly, 3 different modules available, and heard it here first, there's going to be a children's wellbeing hub with a load of yoga videos and meditation videos and breathing exercises and all sorts of stuff that can be accessed as a membership. So loads of really exciting stuff happening, but probably best for now to follow me on Instagram. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, they can do that through my Instagram bio.
Wow, I just got goosebumps when you said about the Children's Hub. This is beautiful. This is the new paradigm. It's all of us coming together and creating these places, or holding hands with somebody. If you don't want to create something, hold hands with somebody or join somebody's program and just take a step towards making a change. I just love it. I really feel what you're sharing is really needed, like totally for our children. So thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a pleasure to meet you, Beckie.
My pleasure. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning into a new paradigm of education. If you're wanting to know more about education or join us in our group, we have a new paradigm of education group. And I just finished with the quote from Mahatma Gandhi, which is, "Be the change that you wish to see in this world." Namaste.